Well, hello. Today we have a CSI leader from Germany talking to us, the CSI team, on a series of calls that we have to cover remote viewing around the world. And Gunther Rattay is our guest. He is our CSI leader for Germany. He is a TRV trainer and a progenitor of the German remote viewing scene. In 1996, he trained with Ed Dames in Beverly Hills, California, in an 11-day one-on-one training with his CRV and TRV protocol in the detailed version, stages 1 through 6, with tools and high-level prompts. After this training, he started to teach his method as a trainer in Germany. Until today, he follows the training approach of Ed Dames and individual training with instructor and teaches the method unchanged. Gunther has 29 years of experience training remote viewers in Germany, and he has a tremendous background in technology, which makes him an extremely mature remote viewer and a trainer. He has explored many topics around technology and remote viewing, and today we have the pleasure to discuss artificial intelligence and other technological advancements in connection with remote viewing. Gunther, welcome to our call. It's a pleasure to talk to you today.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So we were talking about your technical background and how it combines a lot of aspects that perhaps remote viewing uses, and in a way as to how organization information organizes itself in the universe. So I was kind of wondering if you could give us a little bit of background on how you came about to develop your remote viewing skills, and also how did you merge technology with those skills and to bring you where you are today.
Yes. The first I can say is that from my early childhood on, I had a strong belief and interest in supernatural powers of humans. I thought there must be something to it, and at first I was not really able to collect enough information, but in the 1980s and 1990s I shifted to reading books about people with amazing skills. For example, putting some knives into their bodies without bleeding, and those things as telepathy and so on. And so I thought there must be something to it, but I had no idea how to approach myself to the subject. But I decided to read only information about things that I personally could experience. So I didn't feel any longer fulfilled by reading books about other people's stories, but I wanted to have an own experience. And the first real experience was this remote viewing training, 1996, from Ed Dames in Beverly Hills. And half a year before, he was in Germany on a congress, dialogue with the universe. Marcus told it in his interviews that he also was at this congress.
Amazing.
And Ed Dames offered a 4-hour session to explain in depth the remote viewing method. And at that time I was software developer, consultant and project manager. And my primary subject was relational databases. And I sat there and I got the information, and I thought, how can it be that this so-called matrix, the universal database, works like a relational database I'm every day working with? And this was amazing to me. And so all what he told was so sounds so logical and so straight on for me that I thought I have to do this training. And I sent an email, and they told me, okay, I have to wait 2 years. But I was lucky so that 5 months later I was able to start this training. And from my technical background, I always compared what I'm doing as a remote viewer to the way how a programmer is using his skills and his tools to create a result.
Wow.
And it's not only the relational database. At first I thought, okay, the universe must be something like a relational database, but now I think that relational database has been created exactly the same way as consciousness and this universal knowledge source is organized.
I see.
So
So in some ways, you're kind of saying that humans are, compatible with a machine type thing, that we have components and we have data sets and we have barriers of entry and connection points, and like that. This can actually map out the same way.
Yes, I think since we invented or we discovered the fire, we always created tools to overcome obstacles from our environment and nature. And today tools are caterpillars, cars, and all these things, and they all optimize our personal skills. And on the other side, we have created a really complex technology like computers, computer hardware, and computer software. And these applications, nevertheless, may have the fingerprint of the structure of our consciousness. So if we want to explore consciousness, we could re-engineer our technical products we are creating, and the way we have created them may give us hints how our consciousness is structured. An example, the software development. The software development, I think, started in the 1950s, 1960s, and it was a very simple and very complicated way to program a computer. And the first way was with switches on and off and all this stuff. Then there was an assembler language, basic interpreters, compilers, 4GL languages, and now we have Perl and at least AI, which has a prompt structure that is easily used by everyone and has lots of power. But where does this power come from? It comes from all these steps which have been made within the last 70 years with coding and libraries and managed libraries and object orientation and so on. So we have step by step built up our tools to a level where we can say the actual level of AI may be something similar to our conscious mind. And what I mean is our conscious mind is driven by logic, by analysis of our history, of our memory, able to make forecasts, make logical conclusions. And this logical mind, or this everyday mind, is working with the subconscious libraries which are covered in us.
I see.
It's like, yeah.
So in some ways, when people say there's this concept that God created the men and women, human, in as a mirror of him herself, right? And so we go and we create technology as a mirror of ourselves, and that technology captures our essence just as much as the universe created us, or God created us, and we have the essence of the universe inside of us. Yes.
Yes.
Interesting.
I think there's a problem with consciousness, that it's invisible. It can't be directly measured, it can't be watched, it can't be observed the way we are observing our technology. But if we are creating a system similarly complex and similarly powerful to our consciousness, we can observe the functionality of this artificial consciousness.
Yes.
And learn a lot about our personal consciousness.
Yes, I can totally see that. That's a very interesting point you're making. And so how are you exploring this similarities between technology and human consciousness and unconsciousness? Because it feels like we're kind of going through like a revealing time. This is definitely feels like a transition in the human history, when you're kind of exposed to AI and all the things AI can do. And perhaps AI can be intuitive. I'm not sure exactly how to approach this. It's all very new.
I started bottom up. The first discovery was the similarity between the matrix, this universal database, and the relational databases. But then I went on and said, okay, maybe it's a layered system, where in the subconscious there are thousands and thousands of functionality we have not already discovered, and remote viewing might be a tool to get the addresses, the jump-in points into these undiscovered functionality. And I said, okay, if our subconscious mind is a big library of skills, of functions we have to discover, what is the elementary base and how is it represented in technology? And I think the BIOS, the firmware of a computer, is the lowest level of functionality, and I would compare it to our biological body and its DNA. It's the base we need to operate here in 3D reality. Mm-hmm. And then there's the subconsciousness in us and represented by the operating system of a computer. And then there's the application layer representing our conscious mind, and on the other hand, AI. So it's comparable on these
layers. Yes, I can totally see that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I work with technology and I interact with AI in some ways. And what you're kind of saying here maps out nicely for a concept that within the AI framework, there's this thing called an AI skill. And an AI skill is the combination of an LLM. Maybe we can say this is the unconsciousness and all of the knowledge in the world, the database. With prompt engineering, which is knowing how to ask the right questions. And that's what happens very often with remote viewing. How do you consult with the universe about your next step? And this idea of your personal data, which is RAG or enterprise data. And so the combination of enterprise data with knowing how to ask to contextualize your reality in the space of everything, which is the LLM. You have an AI skill. So it does map. Yeah, it does map in very interesting ways, like you're saying.
And if I take this LLM as the all information covering pool of information, mm-hmm. As such, it's quite worthless until somebody uses a prompt to set a direction how the information shall be explored. If there's no user, the whole database makes no sense at all. Mm-hmm. And so it's the way how the information is structured in an associated way. All things are connected to each other, so that we could say, okay, it's a whole system of information connected all with another, but it doesn't make sense for us because we are living a linear 3D life every day. Mm-hmm. We have to consume the information sequentially. And if I stand up and go to work, it's a linear way of events in an everyday life. And if it's Easter and I stay in bed or stay at home, it's another way to live my everyday life. But I am the one who decides which direction to go. And this is exactly the way a remote viewer works when he goes through the session. He has a target address where he jumps into the target site, but then it's on him to decide what information to pick and what information to ignore, because it's not relevant to solve the problem standing behind the remote viewing session.
I see. So you're subject to time and space, and you're tapping into this data set to, in a way, it's like an AI agent. An AI agent is when you have this skill and you actually put it to use, you take action. So a remote viewer is pretty much doing the same, yes. But subject to the time and space continuum, right?
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm. And so I think AI is a supportive tool for us humans to have access to a very, very large pool of information. And as every other tool, it enforces or amplifies some of our skills. For example, it's more endurable. You can use it 24/7. A remote viewer can't work 24/7. So it has special features that are more powerful than human features. But on the other hand, from my experience, every tool we have built until now are always a subset of the original functionality copied from nature. For example, a humanoid robot will have certain skills a human has. Maybe he's stronger, he has more power or more endurance. But on the other hand, his functionality will not be as universal and as fine-tuned as, for example, human senses. And so I think human will always be one step further, because we are the ones who explore reality, and not our technology.
I see.
Our technology can follow, but it can't explore it by itself.
So it would be like, in the beginning, we had to walk to move from place to place. And then maybe we use domesticated animals like a horse to go to point A, from point A to point B a little faster. And then eventually cars came in, and now we can fly. But nobody would say that an airplane is competing with you, or a car is competing with you, or taking over your life, right? It is an accessory, it's a tool, yes.
And one thing for me that's very interesting is, what is the driving force in us to explore things? How we create focus on a subject that is interesting for us and other things are not interesting for us. So I think I'm referencing this Professor Donald Hoffman, who has said, okay, each consciousness agent has the skill to perceive. Perception is one of the original skills.
I see.
And action. Of course, perception without action makes no sense, because you can't interact. So that communication is a follow-up consequence of reception, perception and action. And on the other hand, there's something we all know, that are feelings. And if we really dive deep into ourselves, we know that our feelings are the instance that decide about our desires, our interests, and so on. So feelings have a special function in the whole system. And the question is, how does logic and feelings interact? So, of course, where do these feelings come from? Where do they originate from? And for a remote viewer, feelings are something that has to be coped with, because feelings are always reducing our perception. Our perception is most powerful when we are, according to our feelings, totally neutral and relaxed. And we all know that feelings are the totally difference. We are not relaxed. Sure. We are not totally in our middle, but we are in an extreme. And so there seems to be a dynamic between perception, feelings, and reaction. And this is a very interesting interaction for me. And I have no idea how this can be integrated into my level concepts for software and machines.
Interesting. This reminds me of like the comparison and contrast of watching a movie in neutrality versus being in the movie with emotions. And then this idea of emotions, they put you into motion, and then pretty soon you lost your target because you got caught into the feelings, and you basically diluted your awareness, and you're no longer watching a movie with neutrality. You're basically chasing the movie. or something like that. I see.
Yes, and this is another aspect. I think 2 years ago, my idea was, or my question that came up was, why are we so interested in watching movies and listening to fairy tales?
Uh-huh.
And it's not only fairy tales and movies, it's also games. For example,
That's true.
poker or chess or whatever. It it focuses on us on the game, on the rules of the game, and the rules of the game most times are minimalistic. For example, chess,
Very
how you
simple.
can move, poker, the cards or so. And there are other games which are very wider, like fantasy games or something like this, or 3D simulations on a computer, which are really, really complex. And this idea that we are so fond of these synthetic realities gave me the idea, what if our own reality would be something like a game? A very, very complex
see.
game of life where we have many, many ways to go. But of course, we know that this game is much, much more complex than any way we ever will be able to go.
I see.
It's an
So,
endless game. And so now I think we, as the avatars in this game, have all the skills we need to explore this simulation and to continue it endlessly, because our body has the facility or the possibility to heal itself and to replicate. And with replication, we can take care for the fact that we are continuing the game from generation to generation.
I see.
And on the other hand, a population on this planet with people who don't die would mean that 4,000 years long or 50,000 years long, the same individuals are interacting with each other. That would be extremely boring. So that death and birth are part of the game, so that this continuation always is fitted by new ideas from newborn persons getting into the game and setting their own focus, exploring this reality.
So that's an amazing point. So in a way, you're kind of saying that, humans, we are hooked on the possibilities of having infinite possibilities, and in a way, this is describing creativity, isn't it? That we are really evolution comes from creativity, essentially, and the ability and the freedom to reinvent yourself, and I guess experiment.
I think this creativity, if I try to put it on another level, and I try to answer the question, what sense does this whole activity make? My answer is, the sense of the whole game of life is to create more complexity, to make things more complex. If you think about the Earth in the 17th century, there were less towns,
Right.
less people, less of everything. And now, the last 50 years, birth rate has exploded. We are more than 8 billion people on the planet, and we have more towns, and it's all more dense, and all the problems we are creating are much more difficult and interconnected, so that the complexity always rises. It never becomes less complex. It always rises. And so I think it's a very good workout for our consciousness, because more complexity means we have to cope with more complexity, and the response must be an expanded consciousness. And on the other hand, we have powerful tools like AI who can help to cope with this complexity.
It is. I completely agree with this. That the world gets more complex And I completely agree with this. Yeah, it's just it feels like it's an inevitable future that we have more possibilities, more variables, and then we need technology to help us handle all of this expanded reality. Now, can you imagine before the internet, I didn't know what was happening anytime, like in real time. I couldn't talk to my parents in real time. Making a phone call was something you planned out, especially if it was an international phone call. And today we have access to unlimited information, or a lot more than we had before. So how do you process that, right? So you need an assistant in some degrees, even if it is an assistant that's going to help you block and filter out what's irrelevant, right?
This is exactly what the remote viewing protocol does. The remote viewing protocol sets up a protected environment where you have where you can filter the information the way you want. No external disturbance, and a focus on a target, on a defined target. So for me, the remote viewing protocol is a version 1.0 tool to optimize our consciousness for information creation or information gaining. And this is the better part. It can be used like the mnemonics of an assembler system in the 1960s to create a basic interpreter or a compiler. So we can use remote viewing to create new protocols which unleash other skills in our consciousness. We can find them using remote viewing, and we can describe them, and then we can practice them. And so we can do other things, for example, like telepathy. There are many, not many, but some offers from people about telepathy with animals, with your dog or your cat or so. And imagine, how can we ever think about ourselves on a cosmic level when we are not able to make telepathic communication? To overcome the distances, telepathy is mandatory. You can't go there to talk to them. It's stupid to think that. So telepathy is the exact next step we have to reach, not only to interconnect ourselves in a more efficient way, to overcome social problems, political problems, and all these things. Telepathy really would help. And we can then start to communicate with other entities, maybe with animals, maybe with whatever kinds of entities it may give in this reality. And if this reality is a created reality to offer adventures of every kind, I'm absolutely sure that there are other entities we can reach.
So this is actually, you're talking about, in some ways, when you touch the topic of telepathy, because, many times I have gone through situations where I felt someone was thinking about me, and then next thing I know, they called me, right? So there was some kind of an exchange of information. Maybe, you can attribute that to intuition, but it's intuition or telepathy, whatever it is, there's some data exchange. There was some forewarning that someone was going to call me, and I perceived that in some degree. And I think a lot of people can relate to this. But when you go into telepathy or intuition or anything like this, you're really talking about the building blocks of communication. So kind of coming back to how data is organized and such, I think Donald Hoffman talks a little bit about maybe symbols or glyphs, or how do we, what is the language that people communicate? And then with remote viewing, you can turn down the noise so you can listen to that essential data feed, I guess. And then it comes through in some type of block, right? Or components.
Yes. Whenever I train a trainee in remote viewing, of course, everybody who learns remote viewing and also experienced remote viewer always have to deal with AOLs, so-called AOLs, fantasies, and AIs that are their feelings that influence the data quality.
In AI, this would be a hallucination.
Yes, yes. No, it's a feeling. It's it's a feeling. If you like something very much, for example, if you have a cat, and there's a target with a cat, and the remote viewer goes straight to the target, and he perceives the cat. Maybe he's describing, oh, it's black, it's so smooth, and makes such a wonderful noise, because he's a fan of cats. But the remote viewer totally ignores the person who has been shot, lays 1 meter behind the cat, because the cat is so interesting. So you have to be neutral to get an oversight about all relevant things in the target area. And this is the problem with feelings and emotions, because they bias us in a certain way, and we have to cope with it. We can cope with it, but we have to cope with it. And so the remote viewing protocol is optimal because it teaches us how to separate objective information, whatever objective means, and feelings and fantasies. And to be helpful for my trainees who never think, oh, is it a fantasy or not? I say to them, you can tell me whatever story you want, as long as it only has one word. So every one word story is accepted, and every story longer than one word is an AOL. It's a little bit oversized, but it shows the direction. And so, because I know my trainer at Ames at that time told me, the most elementary information we can receive is an idea. And an idea is always only one. It's a single unit. An idea is not a sentence. It's not a line of words. It's only represented by one word. The idea comes, and the idea is not part of 3D reality until the idea, which pops up in the subconscious, goes up to the conscious mind, and there the conscious mind takes the idea and compares the idea with the thesaurus of words in the viewer. And there's a match, maybe an energetic or something like a pattern match between the idea as such and the word representing the idea. And as soon as the remote viewer writes down the word or speaks the word, then the idea has come into 3D reality. It has been transformed into a reality.
It feels like there's an awful lot amount of encoding and decoding going through filters to be able to lend that idea into what do I perceive it to be based on my personal experiences, I guess. And then you can attach a word to it. And then this remote viewing is basically training you on how to decipher this, I guess, signal line of this.
Yes, and so you can see that human language is a real restriction for expression of ideas. Because if you have no word for it, you can perceive it, but you can't put it into 3D reality. It's impossible. And so this mechanism of ideas, there are always spontaneous ideas. The way how the information is processed is in two ways. One way is spontaneous ideas popping up to be expressed, and the other way is the idea is creating a feeling in the body. So the body is some kind of a resonance system to express the idea. Maybe by a feeling of heat, maybe by the sensation of a simulated color perception, or maybe by a movement of the eyes or of the hands or so. So our body also has a very, very important meaning in the whole game. Because without the body, we could not perceive some part of the ideas which are not transformed by ideas to the conscious mind, but must be reflected on the body.
So in a way, you're saying that, it's not just see, hear, taste, and touch that most people are used to, the sensory, five senses. There are a lot of other signals that may be scattered physically on the body that can help you understand what is this, data that's coming in.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes so far that in stage 6 of the system, of the protocol system, you can, I won't say take over a person or a living being, but you can feel the same sensations like body motions and all these things this person gets. So it's like you become this person. You are melting your body for some time with this other person and get the same sensations as this person. For example, for health issues, where is there some problem in the body, and so you can do so. But you had another question about what is the language consciousness uses to transport the information. And the remote viewing protocol says, okay, there is some universal database, all is connected, and you have to focus it, you have to target some of these data, and then these data come into your subconscious mind, because the origin is so-called Gestalt. Gestalt is the origin of the information in the matrix, and this Gestalt is transferred by body language into a scribble we call ideogram.
I see.
And some people teach that these ideograms are representations or links, like a hyperlink in the internet to the task site. And I think it has some features of a link because it makes us stay connected to the target site using this ideogram. But I think the ideogram is more. My assumption is that the ideogram is a language for a bidirectional communication between our individual consciousness and the universal consciousness where the matrix originates from. And if this is true, then the ideogram has not only passive information transfer function to us, but can be used as a highly compressed language between consciousnesses as such, so that I think that via telepathy, the same ideographic communication, high compressed and high efficient, will take place once we know how it works.
I see. So this is, in a way, I think we've touched on this concept before, that, if you go back to the medieval times and you pick the most intelligent person in the room and you tell that person, this is H2O, and they will say, well, what is H2O? Like, well, it's a molecule of water, right? And they go like, okay, water, I know water, but what's H? It's a hydrogen, atom. And what's O? And, you can look at a molecule with a microscope, and they don't know what a microscope is. So it's possible that what you're talking now about telepathy and this mechanism of information delivery, and then how we're built with all this sensory, abilities, that we're just not, evolved to a level that we have the words to describe all this components and mechanisms, but it doesn't mean that they're not there. Just like water was around in medieval times and everybody knew how to use it, we just will evolve in a way that we will know how to use this better. So it sounds like telepathy, it's in the cards for humanity.
Yes, and so I think when we are born in a biological body, there is a full equipped part of consciousness linked to the body, and over time, when we are growing up, more and more parts of the skills of the functionality of this consciousness is unlocked like in an adventure game. On the next level, you get more skills. You need some weapons, some skills to overcome the obstacles of the actual level. I call this everyday life, and political and global civilization problems. And once these problems are solved, the next level of the game can be reached with other skills, of course, with other obstacles and such. And so, for me, the remote viewing method is a way to explore which skills are there, which are not unlocked until now, and to describe the mechanism how to unlock these skills.
I see. Very interesting. Thanks for sharing that. So I like this idea of the game and the next level, and this concept that, when we I don't know if you can even say that it is a frequency level, or when we vibrate at a certain level, that we can communicate more clearly and we can solve the noise and then come back to the essential needs that we have. We can go to the next level and we can create more complexity, and we can take ourselves into a larger, I guess, state of awareness. So this whole thing is about being aware of the unconscious, so that you can create more complex solutions. But as you navigate from point A to point B, the most complex, you need to unload the noise and the baggage so you can evolve. So there's some kind of what I'm thinking of is frequency. I'm thinking that like when you try to talk to someone underwater, they don't hear you very well because water doesn't conduce, right, so well. So I'm just kind of thinking on an energy level. Can you comment on anything on that level in terms of what does it take to reach this transitionary period, to the next level?
First of all, when me and my buddies, two others like Tom Tenkiewicz and Gunther Rattay, we came back from the USA with this fresh remote viewing experience, and we started our institute to spread the word about remote viewing and to offer all these trainings. There was a scientist in Stuttgart, Gunther Rattay, who made measurements about our brain activities with for that time very innovative approach, because he had some kind of 3D representation of the activities, so that it was very descriptive what was going on in the hemispheres. And what he found out is exactly at the moment when you are creating the ideogram, your brain is forced into the alpha state. So frequency, alpha state, is the prerequisite for deeper connection to the target side, is induced by the ideogram. That shows me that the ideogram has a very, very special function. You don't have to work with the ideogram. You can, but you don't have to, but you have to do it to have this effect. So there is frequency as such an interesting aspect. But on the other hand, I think we always, the way we are exploring reality is we get some impression, we get some ideas and some information, data, and we set up a model. We have to set up a model to try to make sense of all these things with logic and mathematics and so on. And I think frequency is also one part of the model to describe a special state. So if this all is a projection, of course frequency also is a projection. Yeah? What is a frequency, if alpha frequency represented on an LCD screen of a computer? It's nothing else but a projection of a curve. And so I'm a little bit cautious to use frequency as the all explaining thing for for effects. I think it has something to do with focusing on something else. So this focus can be described as resonance, maybe resonance. It can be described as punctuation to get narrow like a laser beam. Yeah, there are many ways to explain this feature of focusing on an aspect or getting wider, setting filters and all these things. These are all words describing technical terms to transfer an idea. And I give you an example, a very simple example, how complex things in everyday life are, and we have no idea about them, and we barely can describe them. For example, I'm talking to you now, and assume that I'm sitting directly to you on the table, not through Zoom. Then the following thing is, I want to describe you an idea. I have an idea. My consciousness is creating words and sentences, and this sentence is almost automatically created. It's no big effort to create the sentence. My firmware and my BIOS in the subconsciousness are creating the sentences, and then my body, my firmware, and my subconscious creates a synchronous movement of these sound generating parts and my breath. And so I'm creating these waves, these frequencies, and these frequencies are received by your ears and mechanically transferred into electrical and chemical impulses. These impulses are sent up to the brain, and the brain is transforming it into the consciousness. And consciousness is reconstructing the frequency into patterns, and these patterns are concatenated to words, and these words are concatenated to sentences, and these sentences are reflected to your personal experience to create something that makes sense to you, so that you can understand the sentence I have given to you. There are so many library functions called up in this simple process, and we can do it with ease.
Amazing.
And so there's so much in-depth and of functionality in us that we don't know until now, but it's worth to be explored.
I see. This is when some people say that we use maybe a small percentage of our capability. And
Yes.
It goes back to that beginning of our call when you mentioned the superpower.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. We're just maybe starting to uncover that, and maybe technology can help us, just like fire did, right? And, fire, you could say fire was technology. And in some ways, there are some people who debate whether fire was created by humans or whether the unconsciousness brought fire to humans. It was part of our evolution, and it just manifested itself. Or when the airplane was being invented, that idea was starting to pop out in multiple places in the world, and then there's even a dispute as to who invented the airplane, because it was about to happen anyways. And so it's possible that we may be in a selfish ways claiming that we created something when it was in the air and it was about to manifest itself through humanity as a transfer of information from unconsciousness to consciousness, so that we can evolve. All part of an agreement, a global agreement.
Yes, I think at that point we also can learn from these adventure games on the computer. As soon as you have more tools, in an instance, the problems arising in the scene are always rising. So you have more tools, so you could finish the whole situation with these tools, but the situation gets more complex, and you have to cope with a more complex situation. And so I think these ideas at some points of time they are the tools we get to get a wider approach to the widened reality.
Yes, yes. Yeah, this adds a new level of understanding as to our being, and in some ways, our purpose. It is quite the question of the century that we've been little by little chipping away and understanding ourselves to a deeper level. And so remote viewing is an amazing tool, right? To be able
Yes,
to explore that. I see.
yes, because it's structured, everybody can learn it, and I think it's transparent. It's transparent. If you really go in depth of the protocol, you learn a lot of things that are going wrong in everyday life, and which hinder us to use these skills in everyday life. In everyday life, definitely we do some things wrong, and if we are following the protocol, we are doing things right, and so we can learn what we can optimize in everyday life. So we can take parts of the protocol and apply it to everyday life to optimize ourselves there. For example, the dynamics between emotion and logic. I think our skills are, of course, our conscious mind. It gives us language skills. It gives us logic. It gives us analysis, mathematics, and also its worth. It's not obsolete. It's absolutely mandatory to have conscious mind. But on the other hand, this body feelings, empathy, creativity, and intuition as such are also necessary, and they must be on the same level. Not an overdeveloped conscious mind and underdeveloped intuition, for example, or underdeveloped body feeling. It must be on the same level. And you can do it in a remote viewing session, in the microcosmos of a remote viewing session. You can do all these things in a very measured way. All fits perfectly together, and once you have understood that, you can take part of this into everyday life, and so you can optimize your personality there also.
I see. So in some ways, there's an optimal equilibrium that is achieved through remote viewing, in terms of preparing and achieving that alpha space, and then you can remember that, and then you can try to replicate on your day to day. Because it does take preparation, it does take some level of effort to focus, like you said. It's really to shut down all of the emotions and to be as neutral as possible. But then once you achieve that space, you kind of remember it, and then you can kind of try to replicate it during your day.
There is one part in the whole remote viewing process in stage 4 where there are so-called EIs. These are emotions or feelings in the target area. And these feelings are the part where the remote viewer has to dive deep into the emotions represented in the target area. And that makes a lot of sense, because not only do you get information, for example, if there's a building and there's lots of fun and happiness and so on, it's a totally different scene as if there is anger or sadness, all these things. It gives you some information, but this is not the most important thing. The most important thing is, if you get these emotions from the target area, if you can perceive them, you dive into the target area 10 times deeper, as if you didn't have perceived these feelings. So feelings are a door opener to the target side. And in everyday life, if there's a person, maybe good looking, good talking, you don't have a real connection to this person until you feel some kind of empathy to the person. Empathy is the door opener for interpersonal interconnection. And empathy is always the door opener to get deeper into it. So you learn to manage, to switch between right brain, left brain in half-second portions, and you learn how to activate your empathy and to switch it off again. You learn all these things within the micro-universe of this protocol.
So tremendous opportunity for personal growth and for better understanding yourself as well. So very good, very good. Yeah. So, well, we've covered quite a bit of information. In some ways, we started talking about technology and the database, and then touched into a few concepts that have to do with remote viewing itself and forms of communication and essential aspects of who we are. What's the future? What's next for you in terms of how you see remote viewing? I don't know if you can comment on anything that you're working on, or what are your views as to the near future as we move forward? This is 2025, maybe another 5 years or 10 years. There's going to be more people potentially curious about this, having access to unconsciousness, or practicing telepathy, or curious about what we're made of, and how data is exchanged among humans.
My personal interest is about creating of reality, influencing reality creation. If our reality is if it's a projection or a simulation, and consciousness is the instance that creates this simulation, then I'm interested in how to manipulate this creation in a way that is interesting for me.
I see. So using unconsciousness to leverage intention in some ways.
Yes, I know that this reality proceeds through time, whatever time is. So I know, okay, there's always a change, and we try to explain the change because we say, okay, we are acting, and this action is changing the situation. We think we are the ones who change reality, but my perspective is we are the avatars. The reality is scripted forward by another instance in consciousness, and if I get contact with my tools to this instance where the reality is scripted forward, I can induce one of my intentions to make things the way I want them to have. But this is interesting. On the other hand, this is a little bit dangerous because I have no ideas what side effects can take place. I feel that I can't do it in a large scope because I have no idea which side effects are there, and I don't feel good enough to forecast these side effects. So my approach is very limited on a very narrow way, but it works. So far it works.
Very good. Yeah. So you're being very prudent, but at the same time, taking into account that you could change the course of your life with intention, but that impacts others. And then, there are consequences to these things. Yes. Very good. Yeah, very nice. Yeah. Wow. This is, we've taken our discussion to a higher level here. So it is fair to say that people are creative, and we all have this mechanisms within us, and we've been living, evolving on the planet for many years, and this will continue. So, the curtain will open more and more, and we will understand our capability through challenges. I guess that's the
and one aspect. I think for some people it might be something like an alarm call, because always running in circles and losing curiosity for things which are unexplored for the individual, could be reached but are not explored by them because they are running in circles, is not very healthy. This is a totally different view to health, to see that curiosity and interest and new experiences are mandatory for good health of the individual. And once the person has lost that track, he will get ill. And so it's another perspective on health.
I see. So you prescribe that stepping aside a little bit and then maybe meditating or taking time to, examine your current state in your timeline, to just reflect on your life experiences. It's a very healthy thing to do.
And to act, of course, and to act in new ways, not running in circles. Not doing every day the same thing. It's so boring. It's like a zombie.
Very nice. Great. Well, that's a very positive closing thought, and I think that the folks who watch this video will appreciate a lot of the content that we covered, and this beautiful message that's coming through at the end. We've been talking for close to an hour now, I think, or a little shy of an hour. Do you want to have any final thoughts you wanted to share with people? This is, by the way, not the first and not the last call. We'll probably have a follow up, but feel free to comment on what's coming up for you, and maybe in a couple of months we'll have another call and areas that you might want to cover.
The main idea I want to spread is that the most comfortable way to see life and existence I have found until now is the way to see that there's a universal consciousness, and I am a part of this universal consciousness. And this universal consciousness has been so powerful to create this universe and to create all the dynamics taking place. And so my personal consciousness as part of the universal consciousness has the same power. This thought is so empowering, and until now I have not discovered any limits for explanation of death, birth, telepathy, energetic healing. It all fits perfectly into this view, into this perspective, and I can invite every person to check this perspective, because it's so empowering and so healthy for the individual to think about it that way.
Very good. Thank you very much. Awesome. So I will add descriptions on this video when we post online on how to reach you. But if you wanted to comment on, what is the best way to talk to you, Gunther is a CSI leader, a community of special interest leader for IRVA in Germany. But are there ways that we can contact you directly, or would you prefer to be contacted through the IRVA email address? I will list them all below.
Yes, you should list it below.
Okay, very good. So I appreciate your time, and I think that I will live life differently after this call. I appreciate the concept that we went through. It was very insightful, and we look forward to talking to you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luciano. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.